Derby County head to Loftus Road on Friday night as they look set to prepare for the new reign under John Eustace. As we're talking right now, as of recording, John Eustace has not been announced as Derby County manager, but we are certainly expecting that to come before this game on Friday night. It's going to be a very, very interesting one for both teams. QPR find themselves in a very, very good position, sitting 13th in the league table on 41 points. That is 12 points higher than Derby County find themselves in 21st place. After 32 games, it's 29 points for Derby County. As of recording, they are currently sitting outside the relegation zone, but with games to be played tonight, there is an opportunity that Derby County could fall back in. Obviously, we all hope that Derby County will stay in that zone outside, and that's something which we have to talk about within this video and for John Eustace to deal with heading forward for Derby County. Now, if we look at the two injury lists, Derby County are missing Corey Blackett-Taylor, Curtis Nelson and Dejon Brown. There is also a potential word on Joe Ward. Apparently, he's struggling with his knee. Someone claims to have spoken to him at the game on Tuesday night, but obviously I can't say for sure. We'll have to wait and find out once John Eustace is in and if he seems to have any plans for him. We then look over to QPR where they're missing four of their key players. Jake Clark-Salter, is supposedly out until mid-March, as well as Karamoko Dembele. Lucas Anderson and Zansella also supposed to be out until the end of February. We then look at the recent form for these two sides, and obviously we've spoke about Derby's form time and time again over recent weeks. Recently just went through a game of 8 defeats on the trot in all competitions, but then we can't ignore the two recent results that they've picked up. It's a draw versus Norwich City with a last gasp penalty by Jerry Yates, and a 0-0 draw with Oxford United. Now, Derby County still in both of those games had all the mannerisms of a Paul Warne side, and that's something which isn't going to be taken away really quickly. I think Friday night, it's not necessarily going to be the start of the John Eustace era, but it's certainly going to be time to be able to start to see the changes. We were never going to see it under the likes of Matt Hamshaw and Andy Warrington, and in my opinion, I think they both should have gone with Jake Buxton and Bradley Johnson stepping up to lead the first team for the time being, because I just felt as if we've continued on that same pattern. And yes, we've picked up 2 points in the last 2 games, but ultimately I think the style hasn't really changed. We then go on to QPR, who've picked up 2 wins and 3 defeats in their last 5 games, including a recent defeat to Coventry City. Their 2 wins came against Blackburn Rovers and Hull City. Blackburn Rovers were managed by John Eustace on that occasion. Then, obviously, they suffered defeats to Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday. Now, obviously, when we look at this QPR side, there's some very, very good players within the mix for them. You look at, obviously, those in the defensive line. You've got the likes of Steve Cook, Ronnie Edwards. Ronnie Edwards is a player, by the way, and I think he's going to go on to big, big things. You also then go into the midfield. Obviously, Dembele's out injured, but Jack Colback is a player with bags and bags of experience. We look at Harvey Vale, who's coming from Chelsea within the transfer window. Very, very good player, and if he can get his foot on the ball and make things happen, he'll be very, very good. And I also want to mention Varane. I think, if I remember rightly, he's a very, very good player. I'm not 100% sure if it's him or if there's another one, but I'm pretty sure it was Varane, who's very, very good. And then obviously you go to the forward line, the likes of Ilias Chair, Michael Fry, Zansella, some really, really good players in there. And obviously, if we look at sort of like their top goal scorers, top assisters, you've obviously got to look at the likes of Michael Fry and Ilias Chair. Some very, very good players there. Their highest rated player is Jimmy Dunn. He also finds himself on 4 goals this season. It is going to be very interesting to see how sort of QPR prepare for Derby County, because I really like Marty Cifuentes, the manager at QPR, and I just think it must be really difficult for a team like QPR or whoever faces Derby over the course of the next few weeks to really put a stamp on how we're going to play with obviously the change of manager. And I think it's the same with everybody, because yes, they can go and look at previous games of John Eustace's managerial career where he looks at Blackburn and things like that, but ultimately I think it could be a very, very different occasion for Derby County. And We obviously then go and look at the Derby County squad, which is so devoid of confidence, it is unbelievable. But a big shining light for Derby County has to be two of the centre-backs in Sondre Langas and Matt Clark. Two very, very good performers. It was obviously really good to see Ryan Niambi back in the fold as well. A player who I think will be absolutely magnificent for Derby County in a back four over the course of the rest of this season. You obviously then go into the midfield, and I've got to put a word out for Harrison Armstrong. I was a bit down on the signing of him. I just felt like it wasn't really a signing which Derby County needed, but it's one which I think he could have a massive impact by the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me if our midfield three by the end of the year consisted of David Ozo, Harrison Armstrong and Kenzo Heldmine, because I just think that we get that extra technical presence in the midfield. Armstrong is happy to run about and win tackles and things like that. So is David Ozo. You give Kenzo that sort of free role to pick up the ball and make things happen, and that's what Derby County really need to see from a player like Kenzo Heldmine. You've also then got a big discussion on Ben Osborne. Where is he going to fit into a potential John Eustace system? As of recording this video, no announcement has yet been made about John Eustace, which obviously makes it sort of really difficult to talk about, because obviously without knowing who's going to be the manager, it's really difficult to sort of put a team together of how we're really going to play. I do believe that we are going to be playing a back four on Friday. That's my personal opinion. I think we're going to end up with Lars-Jørgen Salverson up front, Mendes Lang Jackson either side, probably Kenzo in that sort of 10/8 role with Ibu and David Ozo. I think that's just the base, bare bones of what the squad will be, and then obviously a back four of Elder on the left, Clark, Langas and obviously Ryan Niambi. We've obviously got some big players on the way back as well. You look at the likes of Kane Wilson when he returns, Corey Blackett-Taylor. It'll be really, really important to see the way they slot in to obviously a John Eustace style of play. Obviously, Derby County's leading goal scorer is Jerry Yates with 7 goals. He's also got 3 assists as well, which puts him on 10 contributions for the season. And then you've got Ibu Adams, Caden Jackson, who hasn't scored for a while. And obviously Mendes Lang's there on 4 assists. And you look at the average ratings, it's Ibu Adams and Matt Clark leading the way for current Derby County players. Obviously Erin Cashin is still on there as well. And I think if you look at the next 2 games for Derby County, you've got obviously QPR and Millwall, 2 games where we really need, in my opinion, 4 points. We need 4 points out of these 2 games, because then you go into Middlesbrough and Coventry, some really difficult games. I think Blackburn's going to be a very, very tense one, with obviously the arrival of John Eustace, which I'm hoping by then has been all done and all completed. And it's one of those for me that it's difficult looking at these next few games, because QPR's a difficult one because he's only going to get 1 session. I think the first game we can really take a proper shine into has to be that Millwall game, which is at Pride Park, 12:30 kickoff. I think it will be live on Sky. If I'm wrong, correct me down in the comments, but I'm fairly sure that's live on TV. And it's going to be sort of a very interesting run for Derby County to sort of pick up some points, because obviously, as I'm recording this video, we sit 21st in the league. By tomorrow, it may be different when you're watching this video, because obviously, I believe Hull, Luton, Stoke all play tonight. And obviously, Hull and Luton can completely change sort of where we sit in the table. But obviously, they face up against Burnley and Sunderland. Plymouth face up against Millwall. So it's one of those for me where we really need to see if we can pick up some points and really get ourselves back into sort of that winning habit, and hopefully moving away from that back four. Now, obviously, when we talk about John Eustace and his career as a whole, it's obviously something that has to be spoken about, because I think he's had a fairly decent career as a manager so far. Did really well with Birmingham, did really well with Blackburn, did really well with Kidderminster Harriers, and it's just going to be interesting to see how he settles into life at Derby County. I believe he is bringing 2 of his assistants, which will obviously be really important for the future of Derby County, as they'll obviously know what he's going to do. And they'll know the practices that they've put in place. They'll know the way that the analysis needs to be done during games, after games, up to games as well. And obviously I know that the team will already be working on that for this game on Friday night. They'll already have had the games coded and clips ready to go to show to the new manager, to show to the players and things like that. And it is just going to be really interesting to see if he brings in his own analyst as well, because Paul Warne obviously brought someone in while I was there, obviously then replaced him with somebody else. when they moved on. So it's one of those. There was 2 people that were there when I started that are still there now, and then there's a new one in who replaced the one who came in when I was there as well. So it's one of those for me where it is going to be interesting to see if Eustace does do that, and it sort of opens up that door, because sometimes they do want their own man who knows what they're doing, and that's just got to be something which has to be discussed, because it is going to be really important to make sure that he's getting the information he needs when he needs it and how it's going to go. Now, the big question will be, is John Eustace going to be in the dugout? Obviously, as of right now, that has not been announced. If it gets announced before this video comes out, I'll make sure to make you all aware, and I'll probably talk about it in a video where I've got a video coming out yesterday, where I talk about all the things which I think John Eustace needs to achieve over the first few days, the 5 things which I think he needs to do. So if you haven't done so already, go and check that video out. Obviously, it's going to be a really important one versus QPR on Friday, live on Sky Sports. If you have not done so already, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know your score predictions, team predictions. Hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, hit the like button as well, and I'll catch you in my next video.